button, subscribe, share, comment. I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate the dialogue. Thank you everyone for your support. In today's video, I want to talk about whether private security is more dangerous in 2024 as compared to, I don't know, a decade ago. Like, is it getting more dangerous? Is private security work in general, is it dangerous? And what are the dangers involved, and what are some risk mitigating behaviors that we can engage in? That's what we're going to be talking about today, and I really want to hear from everybody else in the regular comment section box. Hey guys, like every once in a while I'll get somebody that reaches out to me and says, hey, you know what, Sean, like why did you ban me from your channel? I have a lot to offer. And my first response is usually chill out. Calm down first, because chances are I probably didn't ban you from the channel. Those that get banned from the channel come from my right-hand man, Mike from the Professional Security Journal, who is like almost religiously chiming in on all the videos. There he is. I just saw him right now. He bans a significant amount of people in the live chat who give these offensive comments. And when I say offensive, I don't mean like, hey Sean, I disagree with you, and here's why. I mean, like, shut the F up. Some people making some like really like offensive remarks that involve cuss words that has nothing to do with driving the topic. Those people get banned, but those who complain, they're usually not on the live chat. So that's my stance on it, guys. If your comments don't appear, there's like a 99.9% chance that you are not blocked from the channel. That's an issue between you and YouTube. So I encourage all negative remarks, as long as it's constructive criticism. I wrote quite a bit of books related to the private security industry, private investigation industry. I have some people making some remarks that I did not help them pass the PPO test or the private investigator exam. There's nothing on the real test that reflected my practice test. I want you to go to those videos and see that I don't remove any of their comments. So, onward, okay? Let's talk about, actually, I want to talk about what happened yesterday real quick. So while I was filming, like at 8 o'clock p.m., I got caught off guard because all of a sudden I look and I see like a flashlight. So my first like instinct, I guess the animal instinct, tells me is to shut off all the light in the cabin of my vehicle, right? So the first thing I do is grab my cell phone and like shut it off. Well, it ended up being a CHP officer. He thought I was DUI, and I pulled the shoulder of the road because I'm trying to sober myself away, sober up. And then I intuitively grabbed my pistol, like as soon as I saw the light, and I threw it underneath my floorboard because I didn't want to get shot by the police, which was a stupid plan. A better plan would be just to have my cover garment, like my shirt, and just cover over, rather than doing that silly response I did. And then it was a friend I knew from like a neighboring jurisdiction. I knew him for like 15 years. He's like, "Is that you, Sean?" And I said, "Is that you?" And he's like, "Yep." I call him by his first name. Anyhow, that's what happened, man. Like, it was all kosher. Nothing happened. Now let me go back to my filming area. Okay, so let's talk about 2024. Okay, I'll go through the comments real quick. Doug is here. Welcome. My good friend Justin Hawkeye, former student of mine, is here. Professional security drone says, "I love your eyes, baby cakes." Oh my goodness. Livy Peterson says, "Jesus has a plan for your life. Keep trusting him." Absolutely, absolutely. The professional security drone says, "So even cops are scared of cops." Got it. No, for me, I get anxious around police too. Jeremiah says, "Is this First Amendment observed here, or is this a communist chat?" That's an interesting question. I mean, what do you want me to say? This is a communist chat? All right. There you go. Mike says it the best. Just don't be dumb. All right. Let's talk about security in 2024. I've been in security and law enforcement. In November will be my 26th year. I've seen the whole industry evolve around that time period. The last decade. I mean, it's constantly evolving with technology and with public sentiment. I will tell you that because of the last 5 years, with all of the anti-police rhetoric, which is basically pushed forward by a lot of the politicians in office, like Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, I don't think it was too bad, but Kamala Harris is the worst, pushing this forward. And I want to say the farther left of the Democratic Party, and then even on the far right of the Republican Party, pushing a lot of the anti-police sentiment forward. Guys, that does not do justice for private security. And I know that I'm going to get a lot of criticism on what I'm saying, and Mike from the Professional Security Journal does an excellent job moderating these comments. As long as the comments are respectful and they push the topic forward in a constructive criticism light, he tends to allow those comments to flow throughout the comment section box. So I trust him 100%. There's a lot of anti-police rhetoric. What that does is it creates a dangerous atmosphere for private security. When police are not supported, there's very little support for private security as well. And it goes back to accountability, right? I guess those who talk about defunding the police keep talking about accountability. I agree that police should be held accountable 100%. But let's not take away the tools that they need to do their job and the training that they need to do their job and be successful and be able to enable create a safer place in the world. Now, what happens when police, law enforcement, corrections are not supported, you get a lot of uninterested police officers that don't want to do their 30 stops a night. Well, that's a lot. Maybe 10 stops a night, 15 stops a night, and be proactive, because they're going to be classified as somebody that's racist, somebody that's abusive. Let's make this statement. If you are a police officer and you're making tons of traffic stops, tons of stops at night or in the daytime, you're going to get complaints, and there's a greater chance that you are going to use physical force. And there's a greater chance that that use of physical force is going to be perceived as you abusing your authority. We know that the more proactive you are, the more complaints. So what they did in California is they made law enforcement fill out RIPA reports, RIPA reports. Basically, you used to have to note down what type of gender you identify with, but then there's a restraining order against that. Like for me, I would have to put on my RIPA report whether I am bisexual, heterosexual, or something like that. Or I'm sorry, my gender. I'd have to put male, female, or binary or something like that. And there's a restraining order that's in effect right now, and police officers don't have to do that anymore. But what they have to do is they have to fill out a whole report. That report might take 5 minutes. It might take 10 minutes. So let's just say you pull over, I don't know, guys, a party bus, right? Headed to Las Vegas. Well, because everybody is technically detained, well, let's just say if everybody in the party bus says, am I being detained? And then you tell them like, well, yeah, you are. You have to complete a RIPA report on the driver and every single one of the passengers. Every single one of the passengers. And then if you search one person, you have to write a report, even if you don't find anything. As long as you search, you have to write a report on the basis of your search. So what that basically did to a lot of law enforcement is it caused them to not be as proactive as before. So instead of doing their 10 stops a night, 15 stops a night, 20 stops a night, let me just do one stop, or let me just meet minimum standards of whatever's expected from my watch commander, and that's it. Same thing with pulling somebody over because they're speeding. You pull over one person, as long as everybody else is detained, you got to do RIPA reports on everybody. And then I think by badge number, through like maybe a public record search, you could see basically the enforcement behavior of that officer. And you can also see what race what race the majority of people that officer pulls over. Like, so for me, because I work in a predominantly Hispanic community, I guess I would be perceived as a racist, right? Because 100% of stops that I would do involve somebody being Hispanic. And honestly, like, I don't know of any law enforcement officer that says, hey, that person is blue in color, let me pull them over. It's behavior based most of the time. Now the problem is obviously the bad apples. And guys, I've been in law enforcement I got in the academy in 01, right? And a lot of people, proponents that are against law enforcement, and I'll talk about how this relates to security. They think that police is like abuse, they're abusive and they're out of control. Well, let me tell you this, you have no idea what law enforcement was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. For me, it seemed like it was the Wild West, right? And if we had body cameras like over 20 years ago, a lot of things that law enforcement did would be controversial, and it would not look good in public eye, right? There's a lot of criminals, or significant amount of criminals, carrying a badge, is what I want to say. I've only, I got in 02, right? But there's been people that have been in law enforcement way longer than me, and security. Even security, guys, I got into security in the late 90s. If you've seen the things that we done with regards to like using force against others compared to now, it's completely different. And I say we, I don't mean like me in a collective unit with other people. I'm saying we as the security industry as a whole, not me as an individual. It was so much worse. We, or those in law enforcement right now, are, compared to previous years, are doing an excellent job. Hold on, guys. They're doing an excellent job compared to, when you compare it to years before. There was so much more accountability. right? Now, all this negative sentiment against police has a trickle-down, hand-me-down effect on security. When there's a war against police, there's a war against security. Security dresses very similar. They drive similar cars. They have similar weapons, actually the same, depending on where you're at. Their gear is the same. Everything is almost the same as law enforcement. And what happens is you have a lot of people that shouldn't even be out of jail. And you guys in private security are having to deal with these people. A perfect example, 2 El Monte, California police officers were murdered. The person that they were that shot them, I think was on probation on a gun charge and should have been in jail. That incident has a negative effect on me because I feel bad for the family. Matter of fact, the dad reached out to me because he wanted to work on a children's book to commemorate the life of his son. And I just feel bad. Like every time I communicate with him, it's been like over a year, but every time he does a post on social media, I just feel terrible about the situation, asking why is he out? You deal with these people on your property. These are the people that you trespass on a regular basis. These are the people who fight with you. These are the people who steal from you. These are the people that should be in jail. But because of lax liberal policies, they're out and about and they're doing whatever they want. So I would say in 2024, it is dangerous to be a private security officer, especially considering the fact that you work by yourself almost all the time. The fact that you have, you kind of have, like, you can't use the same less lethal weapons than in similar circumstances that law enforcement would. So, for example, with law enforcement, when they deal with a man with a knife, that's just holding it there and not threatening anybody, yet you can have lethal coverage and then you can have less lethal coverage. Maybe that might be a taser, right? And then the other officer has a firearm. Well, in private security, you're kind of expected. I mean, if I ever have to testify, I would say absolutely no, but you're kind of expected to go less lethal, right? If they're just holding their knife rather than producing your firearm. That in itself, my friends, puts you at a serious officer safety disadvantage. Because now you're pulling out a less lethal instrument for a lethal situation. It doesn't balance out. I'm not saying that that's what you should do. I'm just saying that it looks like the social media trolls expect you to do that. And no, I don't think that you should have to orient your response to their direction. All I'm saying is kind of be mindful of that. Okay? I would say that 2024 is much different than the COVID years. Like 2020, I mean, there's still the COVID years, right? I'm telling you guys that is when society was like kind of out of control. There's like a sense of lawlessness. I've seen it with my own eyes during those years, like between 2020 and like 2022. Those were dangerous years to work private security, 100%. I think things are a little bit different now. I still think it is dangerous though. Anyhow, those are my thoughts. Let me just see what you guys have to say. What? There's a lot of people here today, Mike. SOJW says, I just got my arms certifications. I've been watching your channel for a while. Thank you. Jeez. Professor Kirijo says, why are you off topic? I don't think he's referring to me. Contact info says it's inefficient policing. I agree. It's not really efficient policing. Gilly says back in the 80s, it was a whole different ball game. Absolutely. Dabo07 says, I think cops need to lose their qualified immunity. If they knew they weren't protected by a code, they might uphold their oath to our constitutional better. And then is Sean about to have another moment with a friend cop? No, that was a trash truck this time. Okay. So we talked about qualified immunity. That's another thing. And the professional Damien, I was on Damien's channel. He had me on his podcast, and we talked about qualified immunity. And I said clearly, if you take away qualified immunity from law enforcement, man, there's all kinds of sketchy people around here. If you take away qualified immunity from law enforcement officers are going to take less of a risk. And let me explain that. Okay? Police officer responds to the raid. Shoplifter just stole like a bar of soap, right? Something like minor. We'll make it less minor. The shoplifters just stole $1,000 worth of merchandise, right? Security's calling, right? Police get on scene, and this guy starts running away. If you take away qualified immunity from law enforcement, okay, the law enforcement officers that are logical about these situations, they're not going to take an extra risk to pursue this person. So, for example, if this person is scaling fences, law enforcement is not going to be scaling fences. If this person is, continuously running away, right? There might be that sentiment in law enforcement, let them just get away. Do you want to put everything on the line that you have, like your house, your savings account, all for the benefit of catching this person? And I would say absolutely no, right? Now, what is the disadvantage? Well, the disadvantage is law enforcement is going to make more riskier decisions. But from what I've seen, being in law enforcement for so long, I think that a lot of the decisions, like tactical decisions, use of force decisions, there's less of a frequency of those decisions because of the body cameras, because of the public sentiment. But if you introduce take away qualified immunity, I'm telling you guys, it's going to be a different world that we all live in. And the most of the audience we have here is security. If let's say you're a hospital, right, and you're saying, hey, we had a combative visitor, he's over there, everybody that approaches them, he throws punches, and he's leaving the scene. If you're law enforcement, do you really want to be in a physical confrontation with this person? I mean, ask yourself. And look, what if the reasonable suspicion to stop this person was flawed, okay? What if security at the hospitals didn't have a legitimate reason to use force? And then now you're over here basically effecting an illegal private person's arrest. Do you want to take that risk? It's easy if you're not in law enforcement. You can easily say no. You can easily say, oh yeah, well, I'll easily calculate that risk. But once you're in it, right, and you have to make these decisions, you're thinking about your family, your house, your financial status. You're going to be thinking about all this stuff. And for me, I would have serious doubts about doing some of the things that are asked of me without that qualified immunity. Now, if you're in private security, you do have a version of qualified immunity, and I might be going off topic a little bit. But somebody asked me about qualified immunity, so I'll go onward with that. As long as you're acting within the scope of your employment, I can tell you this, in California, your employer is they're vicariously responsible for you. They have to defend you in a lawsuit. Is it possible that you're going to be named in the lawsuit as an individual? Absolutely. It happens all the time. It even happens in law enforcement. Now, what happens is, even in law enforcement and security, you have to show the court that you are acting within the scope of your employment, right? And honestly, if I'm an individual and my employer is not going to back me up in court, like help me out by providing me with an attorney, I am only going to give statements that benefit me as an individual. I might be a little bit biased. And when I say I'm not referring to me as an individual. I'm referring to others, like security officers that might be in that hot seat. Okay? Anyhow, I think we beat the topic to the death. Let me know what you guys think about private security in 2024. Honestly, I think it's less dangerous than in previous years. But I want to hear from you guys, and I want to know, how long have you been in private security? If you're saying no, it was more dangerous like 3 years ago, but you only been in private security for a month, that really, there's not a lot of validity in your argument. But we want to hear from you. So let us know how many years of experience you have in security, maybe law enforcement, corrections, and let us know if it's a more dangerous time. All right, guys, I'm out. Take care.